guys, Phil McGilvray here from Grandma's Jars. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're looking at tutorial 4 in our 10-part series, our top 10 tips for paying off debt. In tutorial 4 today, we're looking at the importance of having a cash reserve in place before we start paying off our debt. In yesterday's session, we looked at the importance of having a budget, and with that budget, the power behind that is that it helps us identify true savings. So once we've been through all of our expenses, we can then sit down and identify, well, how much have we really got spare at the end of the month once all our expenses are covered. Now, the temptation is that once we identify that spare money, that true savings, is to start throwing it off our debt, off our credit card and so on, because yes, we do want to get rid of it. But the problem is, too often we'll see people who will go through that, they'll throw all their money, all their extra money at paying off their debt, only to find that something unexpected comes up. And their only option, having paid all their money off their debt, is to then put that unexpected expense back on the credit card or to redraw on the line of credit or whatever it might be, because they've left themselves too short of cash. So before we get into throwing money off our debt, we need to build ourselves a rainy day fund. Now, I've put here 2 reasons why we really need a rainy day fund. The first one is that we can't budget for everything. It's impossible to anticipate everything that's going to come up. Yes, we can budget for 95% of expenses, but there's always going to be that 5% of expenses we just can't cover. I've got a client, for instance, who's just found out she's pregnant. Completely unexpected, completely out of the blue, but there's a whole lot of expenses that go towards covering the cost of baby, whether that's the medical cost or the new pram or the cot or the change table, whatever it might be. There are costs that are unexpected. We recently found out that our 2 boy rabbits were actually a boy and a girl rabbit. Needless to say, we ended up with lots of little rabbits. The subsequent action from that was they both got D6, which cost us a whole lot more than we'd expected. So things come up that we can't expect, we can't budget for. So what we want to do is budget for the 95% of things we can expect, but then for the 5% we can't, we need to have a rainy day fund. The other thing is, and again it ties in with that first point, is Murphy's Law. When we're least expecting it, things come up. When we're least prepared, things come up. And it just seems to us from our experience is that things happen to people who are least prepared to deal with them. I don't know why that is, but it just happens. And interestingly, when people have the cash reserve in place, they have a budget in place, it seems that Murphy goes knocking on the next door neighbour's house instead of yours, and these things just don't seem to happen as regularly. So Murphy's Law is real and alive, and we see it every day. So again, having a rainy day fund to cover those things so that you are prepared, but interestingly, being prepared often means that these things don't occur. So having a rainy day fund is really important. Now, the second thing that people ask me once we talk about the rainy day fund is, okay, we need a rainy day fund. How much is reasonable? Based on our experience, we believe that $2,000 to $3,000 is what you should be aiming for. $2,000 to $3,000 covers pretty much most expenses that come our way that we can't expect. So you sort of think a major car bill, the fridge blows up, major medical expenses. $2,000 to $3,000 will cover most of those in the first instance. So by having that reserve there behind us, it knows when those things come up, we're not going to be forced to put money on the credit card or those expenses on the credit card, but that rather we can get through with our cash reserve. Because there's nothing more demoralising than paying a whole heap off your credit card, but then finding that because you've paid it off the credit card, you've got no reserve behind you, and that big expense needs to be put back on the credit card, and you feel like you've worked so hard only to have it all come undone again. Having a cash reserve will actually save us from that. Now, I've talked interchangeably about having a rainy day fund and a cash reserve. Typically, your rainy day fund is just, in our first instance, is $2,000 to $3,000. But what we want to build towards, once we've got our lifestyle debt paid off, so our lifestyle debt is things like your credit cards, your personal loan, your interest-free loans, car loans, and so on. Once we have those things paid off, we should then look to take our rainy day fund from $2,000 to $3,000 to really what we want is an equivalent of 3 months worth of expenses. Now, in yesterday's tutorial, we did look at the importance of having a budget, and that budget helped us identify what we need to allocate per month to all our future expenses. And when we have a cash reserve, it's these expenses that we're trying to put aside. So having 3 months worth of expenses in cash is what we're aiming for when we have a cash reserve. But that's down the track. We start with the rainy day fund, then we pay off our lifestyle debt. And once our lifestyle debt's paid off, we then try and build our cash reserve to be 3 months worth of expenses. I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand why I'm suggesting that we need this rainy day fund first. I often get a lot of resistance to this because people do just want to pay off their debt first and foremost, but I've seen it come unstuck so many times that we've built into our process now that before we really tackle the lifestyle debt, we need to have this rainy day fund in place. As always, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us via our forum or our contacts page. We'd love to hear from you.